the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast.
Fish on, guys, right here.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the live edition of the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast. You're going to have to drop the volume so I can hear it. The janky version. We're going to get this together. There you go. Just a couple of things. I'm Michael. Rob is here with me as well. And our guest for tonight, we have Captain Dan Keating here, as well as Captain Arnie Arredondo as well. Both very, very accomplished anglers. Long time on the water, charter fishing, tournament fishing, anything with salmon on the water here on Lake Michigan, Great Lakes. They've done it, experienced it, and have been very big advocates for the sport, educating others. As we all know, Captain Dan Keating and Arnie as well. And something that we'll get into as well is the work you're doing for the greater fishing community, which I think is really cool that we don't hear a lot about. And I think it'd be cool for people to just have that general insight of what you're working, the organization you're working with to help benefit all the anglers and how people can support. Because I think once they know what you're working towards and the organization, think about how many people don't know that want to support it and want to get involved, whether it's monetarily or just showing up at meetings. That can strengthen the cause. This is a conversation that Rob and I have all the time about why certain things are the way they are. And a lot of times it's just that we have our fishing community, but we don't always come together for these important conversations that affect the waters and all these kinds of things. So I'll start there with you, Arnie. Can you share with everyone the work you're doing and in terms of when we're looking at laws that might impact the fishery and these kinds of things? Can you give a broad overview of what that all is?
Yeah, I'm involved with a group called the Wisconsin Lakeshore Business Association. And what we've done over the 6 years of our organization is we've entered a very cooperative effort with the Department of Natural Resource Fisheries and their public relations department. A lot of it is concern for what's going on in the rim of Lake Michigan, the communities, how it affects a lot of the communities, what Lake Michigan brings to the state. And Lake Michigan is the most visited body of water in Wisconsin. So I mean, it's an important thing. We work like I said, we work with the department on creating some new opportunities. We have the brook trout thing going on. I don't know how many people know, but Wisconsin stocked brook trout year before last for the first time. They stocked them in Milwaukee Harbor and Manitowoc. And later that year and then the following spring, we actually saw some effects of it. There was some brook trout caught obviously in those ports, but Port Washington had some brook trout in it. So that means they survived the winter. They made it over there and they're starting to grow. That being a big part is the coaster brook trout is, that was a native, the brook trout was a native fish to Lake Michigan. So that's a big part of preserving, the fishing heritage, Lake Michigan, the whole thing. It's a great fish. It's a great inshore opportunity for pier fishermen, especially the river fishermen, the fly fishermen love it in Lake Superior, and we're trying to develop that here on Lake Michigan. That's just one of the things we do. We worked with legislation to open up the doors so that we can get our Skamania program back off the ground. We're looking at like 175,000 Skamania this year, being put in the lake in Wisconsin waters.
That's awesome.
That the Skamania was in the 90s was such a great fish. It's a fish that's accessible offshore again. They come in the summer. So that's a great opportunity for a lot of people that don't have boats, so that they can enjoy the lake a little bit more and some of the fish that are available. But we work, like I say, we work hand in hand with the department and just trying to develop from our knowledge being on the water, what we see, what we're observing, and it's a very cooperative effort because they're taking into account what's actually being seen and differences in some of their biological data and adjusting it, and it's been a very interesting experience, to say the least.
So you've managed to do it with great accomplishment, by the way, on the brook trout. Is there another species down the road, or is it or any of the current ones that you're looking forward to, or the organization's looking forward to I don't know, add numbers or reintroduce or move here, do there? I don't know how it all works.
Well, a part of it is adjusting our stocking levels.
Okay.
To meet to help with understanding the bait fish, the prey, what's out there. They use a predator prey ratio, and sometimes everything's not perfect, and everything's a learning curve. It's a very large fish tank to try to control. And it's nice that the department's taking observations other than their own. We've done a lot of things. And I say legislation, we worked very hard on getting the aquaculture bill passed, and the sportsmen being involved was one of the big things, because aquaculture, as a lot of us know or don't know, is fish farming, but there were some regulations that were not allowing us to get other strains of fish brought to Lake Michigan. Back in the day, the VHS was an issue. Well, there were safeguards put in place immediately, which were necessary, but they had run their course because now they'd learned more about it, gave them a chance to adapt to it, and those were the things that needed to be taken off the books to allow more opportunity. That's where the Skamania really came in. We were able to make an agreement with the Indiana state, bring Skamania back. We had a great Skamania fishery through the 90s. And there's no reason that we can't reestablish that here again, and that's what they're working toward. I would say, looking toward the future, I think just solidifying goals with the department is a big thing. And then the brook trout, if that brook trout, if we can get it to take off, and which we think all indications it can, that's a destination fish, they call it. That means people will actually travel a very long distance to catch a certain species. Yeah. And the brook trout happens to be one.
Yeah, it's one of those species people go to like Colorado and those rivers, right? Those real, just real, I don't know, off the beaten path, real exclusive. But it'd be cool to find it and just come to a major city, Milwaukee or one of these areas, and be able to target them. And
right.
And in the past, when we had the brook trout, they got really big here.
I was going to say
4 to 5 pound brook trout were common.
Yeah, that's a world-class brook trout.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lake Superior has them. There's no reason that, Wisconsin can't. If you take a history of the state, back in the 80s when they were doing all the stream restoration, a lot of people thought it was like, waste of money, this and that. Well, now look at all the numerous blue ribbon streams we have in the state, in the inland part. And it's, Wisconsin is a very big focal point for trout fishermen. Stream fishermen, and we're kind of trying to bring a little bit of that, with the brook trout. Again, we're looking at more opportunity for everybody. And if you don't have a boat, hey, this is another fish, another species you can target. And again, it was native to the lake.
I like the idea of it, because when you think about it, like as you said, when you look over the course of a year, and if if this happens, then throughout the year, whether you're on the shore, small boat, or of course, in the big boats, there's always one species coming in and out, right? Early spring, the cohos are real close and stuff. You get a variety of fish, Lakers as well, depending on where you're at. Then you have the Skamania coming in the summer, so it gives you something to target and fish, and then you got your kings in the fall. So it's pretty cool. Like, it sets up in a way where you get a variety of fish in and out, keeps you looking forward to catching fish and all that stuff.
It's that opportunity. It's all about opportunity. The brown trout, great fish opportunity. For a small boater, if the lake's too rough and you happen to be in a harbor like Kenosha or Racine or Milwaukee, or I can keep naming them.
Yeah.
It's a good chance you can fish and catch some brown trout. That was not a thing that was always here, and it's been here. We've been very fortunate over the last 2 decades to have it, and that's another thing that we look at. The majority of the ice fishing that's done, brown trout, along with rainbows. They're caught also, but brown trout pretty much been the target species for the ice fishermen. So they're going to have the ice derby in Racine coming up. There's going to be 400 people ice fishing in the derby in Racine Harbor. I mean, think about that for a minute.
That's a lot.
For
you said 400. I just thought that it's a big harbor, but that's a lot.
Yeah, that's put on by Salmon Unlimited in Racine. It's an incredible event to go see that many people out there fishing, and having a great Saturday, and there's all kinds of prizes, and it just shows, I guess you'd call it the limitless part of Lake Michigan that it has to offer, and that's what we're after. You know, it's always about opportunity.
Yeah.
It's hard to fish somewhere there's no fish.
No, absolutely. And to that point, now would be a perfect time for everybody watching. If they want to support, get involved in the efforts for all of this, where's the best way for them to go and make sure to get the information now?
You can go to our website, Wisconsin. Just put in Wisconsin Lakeshore Business Association, and it'll come up, and you can kind of go through what we're doing, what we're looking at. Our website's right now going through the whole revamp.
Great, yeah.
Like everybody, the construction, I guess.
Like we know, yeah. We're getting there, I promise.
Yeah, it's not a fast thing, but there's good information there. Talks about what we're about, mission statement, and the one thing I want to emphasize is that we're not fighting with the department. We have a very good relationship with them. Everybody knows fighting doesn't solve anything.
Sure.
It's much better to sit at a table and talk about it and see where we can go with it. And that's kind of where it is. And, luckily there's great involvement. We have, a lot of people that are involved at different times. We're supported heavily by the business community, especially once you get Kewanee, Algoma, those Sheboygan even, they got a great river, riverfront, people are coming to see Lake Michigan, and they want to know what's under the water.
Yeah.
Fish are under the water. That's what we're about. So
absolutely. So for those of you watching, get involved. You want to get involved, go ahead and go to the website. And with that being said, as Arnie's talked about the efforts here to, the stocking and having these fish and all this stuff, we'll go right to Captain Dan Keating here, because it starts Saturday, got this weekend. We've got your salmon school here. So this is a great opportunity to really get into the nitty gritty of targeting these fish. And we know, we just had someone this week come into the shop, brand new, bought a Lund. What was a Lund? He bought a Lund. He just had a kid, he has a toddler with him. And he's like, you know what? We're ready to go out here and start doing the salmon fishing. And with your school here, it's a great opportunity to start getting the information now, so you can start putting all the things together, because before you know it, it'll be May. And when May comes, you're on the run, and it's hard to kind of play catch up then when you hear all the reports of the fish biting. You're still trying to figure out how to troll this way and how to do a spread and all these kinds of things. So, Captain Keating, can we talk about the school, what people can expect this weekend, and then let's talk about start talking about targeting some of these fish. What are we going to be looking forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. First, let me just add for what Arnie was talking about. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of people take Lake Michigan for granted. They just go out and they catch fish. But Arnie, along with some other guys in Wisconsin, have worked behind the scenes tirelessly, working with the DNR to make sure that the sportsmen's interests are being represented and that fish are getting put into the lake. One reason we have been catching all those big kings the last few years is partly because of the efforts that these guys have been making. And I know Arnie calls me from Madison after some of the meetings up there. And so he's done a lot of work, and he won't take the credit for it. But I would encourage people to, get involved and support, the WBLA with their efforts. It's been really good. But yeah, as far as the salmon school this weekend, it's at Lake Michigan Angler. It's 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. I will say that Sunday is almost full. We've only got a few seats left for Sunday. Saturday is, I call it Salmon Foundations. It's a more, I don't want to say it's a beginner's course. It's a more basic course. We're gonna look at the tackle. We're gonna look at boat setup. We're gonna do a deep dive into lure selection, because there's just so much out there, and especially for guys that are new to the fishery, it's really easy to get confused, and it's really easy to spend a lot of money, which Rob would be really happy about doing that. So that's not a problem. But we're going to talk about lure selection. We're also going to talk about, there's so many different ways to put your lure in the water to the fish. The different types of wire, the different types of mono, divers, blah, 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 blah. So we're gonna unpack that and explain how to do it right. In the last few years, I've had the opportunity to fish on a lot of other people's boats, smaller boats, mid-sized boats, and large boats. And I watch a lot of guys, they're not always doing things right. So if you can learn how to use the gear that you bought, use it properly, you will catch more fish. And then we're also on Saturday going to wrap it up with spring ABCs. We're going to look at fishing, how to, the basics of spring fishing. Sunday is the deep dive. It's the Advanced Tactics and Seasonal Strategy School. We're going to go in depth with, we're going to look at the environment of the lake, because I'm a big advocate of the more you understand about Mr. Salmon and his world, the more fish you'll catch. We're going to do a deep dive into currents and how currents affect everything. Moves the water around, moves the fish around, it moves our boats around, it affects our lures. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to go seasonally, spring, summer, and fall, with each of the 5 main species and talk about how to find them and how to catch them. As Arnie said, you got to have fish here in order to be successful. And I'm going to add on top of that, you got to know where the fish are to be successful. So that's an overview of what we're going to do, and we have a lot of fun at it. And Arnie's going to be speaking on Sunday too.
Awesome. What's the topic you're going to cover?
We're going to talk a little bit about some of the new stuff, like meat rigs over the last 10 years, what they've done, how I found that they were, how I've had some success, had great success and poor success with it. It's a big learning curve. Everything's a curve, and it's a relatively new to us on this side of the lake, and it's interesting what I've learned about it.
Isn't it something that on the Michigan side they're pretty big proponents of? Am I incorrect on that?
Absolutely.
They're really big in meat, right?
Yeah.
I see all their podcasts. Those guys always ranting on.
Yep. They grabbed onto it and they ran with it, and there's a lot of guys, it's like anything else, they have a little success, you want a little more success, and that breeds that, the question of why did it work and how did it work, and then how can I make it work better? We always want to improve the wheel somehow.
I got a great question. I hope it's gonna be a great question to ask you. Before I do, guys, for you guys watching, at any point you want to ask either of them a question, please take the opportunity to ask a question. Rob and myself have the live stream chat up. You can ask the question. We will throw it at them pretty much in real time. We're not going to do a Q&A at the end. We're going to just, as you bring up a question, we'll dump it on them and get a answer for you, hopefully. So feel free to do that, and make sure you guys hit the like button and share the live stream with some of your fishing buddies as we continue with the conversation here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why don't I have a hat? You guys all have hats, and I don't have a hat.
We conspired.
You guys all have fishing shirts on. I just got a black shirt
we've
on.
got the new Lake Michigan Angler t-shirts on here. Look at
Nice.
this. Came out nice. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Both of you have fished the entire lake. You've been on the other side. I'm curious to know, why does it seem that there's such a, obviously it's a big body of water, right? And there's differences on each side, but it really seems like there's two worlds. If you're on the eastern side, the Michigan side, they do things. They swear by spin doctors. They don't really use a lot of standard kind of flashes here, stuff like that. Over in here, the standard flashes are more prevalent, and not to say people are not using spin doctors, right? But you just kind of see these two very distinct differences. Meat's huge over there, although we've noticed it picking up over here.
Yeah,
it's picking up for sure. Why is it there seems to be like these two salmon worlds on the same lake, from your experience?
Well, I would say that one of the biggest things is what Dan was talking about, current. Here in the southern basin, we get it. The northern part on the western side gets it, but that eastern side really gets it. They deal, I think, with more current than we do.
Really?
Especially if you go across, straight across here, we're in Kenosha, straight to the east is Saugatuck, South Haven, that area. And their currents it seems like their currents, from what I understand, are much stronger summer-wise. I think that's one of the biggest reasons the spin doctor is definitely utilized more there. Back in the day before we were running tons of, long lines, before copper, when it was lead core, there were guys over there that were heavy lead core guys, and they were primarily spoon fishing. And, spoon's a lot more current tolerant than our flashes that we like, so, and the spin doctor is definitely something that works good in the current. You can be wrong, and the spin doctor will help you.
Yeah.
A lot of times their currents are so wicked that you just want to try to get close. I think that's one of the big things. The other thing is that spin doctors are kind of from that side of the lake, so there's more guys that had it and used it, and It's all what you feel comfortable with. I'm a big fan of spin doctors. If there's kings around, I want to have a spin doctor in the water.
We do have our first question. It's from Michael Bennett. If you guys could only run one flasher fly color combo for kings, what would it be?
Go ahead, Dan.
Only one, huh?
Yeah.
Well, be a white flasher. Can have whatever color tape you want on it, but it's going to be white. And either a green crinkle or a bullfrog.
So Dan got it down to 2, right?
I don't have a hat, okay? Give me a break.
See, now here, this is where we're going to differ. I would say right now for kings, the last few years, I'd want a chrome spin doctor. A chrome spin doctor with that UV tape, and I would definitely go bullfrog. Bullfrog happens to be probably my favorite. Second, I'm going to give you 2, would be that chrome spin doctor with green crinkle. Again, that's just seems like what those kings have liked for me.
That seems to be that white just does really well throughout the period. Let me ask you guys both as well. Where do you guys see? I mean, in the last I don't know how many years. I mean, we've got wire dipsies, we've got lead core, we've got copper now. If you had to kind of pin it down, or a thought, I guess, on what's the next innovation in salmon fishing that comes to mind, where do you think it might come from? Is it from the lure side? Is it from a technique side? Is it from an electronic side? This is one of those in the shop conversations that Rob and I have. Like, when's the next big thing coming, and what would it look like, and how would it impact our fishing here? Something stick out to you guys?
I think we're kind of in the midst of it. I think more and more guys are multi-species fishing, and they're running offshore to deep water. I mean, we've done it down here for a long time, but I think spreading out around the lake on both sides of the lake, more and more guys are going offshore, and they are finding success when that morning king bite either ends or never materializes for a mixed bag. So I think that's kind of the new thing going on right now. So I don't know beyond that. What do you think, Arnie?
You know what? I think if we're going to pick a bait or a combination, I just have this feeling that something's going to come up with one of these flies, that somebody's going to put this combo together that all of a sudden they draw to. It's just, there's just the new materials and the way it looks, and some of it's flat, smooth, and some of it's crinkled this way. And so, the biggest thing went from, like that bullfrog with those rubber legs. Now, I don't know what it is about the rubber legs, the skirt on it, but the combination definitely gives it a unique color in the water. That combination. I think someone's going to hit one. There's so many different guys tying flies.
Yeah.
They're at home, and you got to think about a guy. We're lucky that we have these mad scientists out there. Howie being one of them, the biggest one. Guy sits there and comes up with stuff, and you're like, huh? And you don't think much of it till it hits the water, and then you're like, okay, I gotta have about as many of those as I can have. So I think we're gonna have somebody hit one of these flies. I really do. That's kind of what I'm always looking at now, is who's got something a little different. The tinsel's a little different, and who knows, maybe someone's going to tie up. Maybe Mike Smith's going to tie something up for us, some kind of bucktail with.
He brought
something out of his trunk.
He brought the bag when we had him here for that. We released that episode.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. After the podcast we taped, he brought out. I mean, he rolled it out in the sack, and I'm like, oh my god, they looked like they were 30 years old.
Yeah,
they were really, yeah, they were. With the lips on them and stuff. I mean, we put a picture up on the page to kind of show folks a little bit of all that, which is really interesting to see that evolution. I mean, from what it was back in, I don't know, when were they use that? When they say that was back in the 70s? They were using those kinds of flies, to where we're at now, where it is like the plastic or whatever thing it is, and that kind of evolution is also very interesting. And you guys have lived through it as well. What out of all the things that you've used, seen in your time on the water, what was that one item, whether it's technique, lure, whatever, they really changed the game for you? Or maybe it was even something you learned about the water. Just what was that one thing over your career fishing here that really just...
Yeah, for me.
Why are we stuck on the number one here?
It's because you don't have a hat. You're the one missing the hat.
Yeah, that's right.
Why one?
You should have wore a hat.
Because then it would be like 30 things, and then
For me, wire diver. I think a wire diver was. I mean, we ran divers, we had them, all that. Something about wire. Something about that wire. Especially if we're just talking kings. We're gonna just say kings.
Yeah.
That wire diver. Get out of the way. That's what I want. I want that one. You can have everything else. I mean, it opened up a whole new thing because, and who knows? It might be the harmonics. The wire has its own harmonic. That's why we were talking new stuff. Rob and I were talking about the weighted wire instead of copper. Sync rate's pretty similar. I've not got any experience with it, but guess what? I will. I'm afraid not to be there, and be one of those guys. Change is hard for people to accept, not for me. I want to try it. And I think, who knows? Maybe that might be the one for the next week or next month or next year. Who cares? Let's get the next bite. That's what we're after. What's the next bite, And they say history repeats itself. Look at cowbells. Man, they're coming back. Cowbells. I'm like, wow, really? We're going back to this. Yeah, but guys are, I know guys that know how to fish and are having a lot of success with them.
Really
So
well.
it's exciting. Some people don't. I like that there's tons of competition out there to make something. I don't have to think about it. Just put it there. I'll use it. Let me try it.
Give it a try. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
What about you, Dan?
So
you want me to give you 5?
No.
I'll give you 5.
No,
I give you 5.
He had 2,
Okay.
then it went into 3, and then maybe a 4. So
He snuck those in though.
it's all right.
Go ahead.
So all right. So the question was, what's the one thing that changed it? So
For you.
I could go with a type of line or a type of lure, but there's too many of them. So I think it was the not knowing how to fix anything on my boat. Because before we had GPS and the fancy sonars, we had Loran C, and mine never worked. And as Arnie would attest, I didn't know how to do it right. And I always thought I knew right where I was at, fishing out at Trident Marina. And then one day, I don't know if you remember, you and I bumped into each other in the fog way out. And your electronics work, so you knew exactly where you were at. And you asked me where I thought I was at. And I thought I was like a mile or two north of the state line. And Arnie goes, you're north of Kenosha. And I was like, gotta be kidding me. So anyhow, I started paying so much more attention to the currents because I didn't have anything to measure anything. And so I would intuitively get really dialed in. And this is a long answer, sorry, Michael. So understanding how currents worked, and then a few down the road, running into a book called Lake Michigan in Motion by a Dr. Mortimer, who is a scientist who explained how the currents work, and then realizing, my just observations without electronics, then reading what he was saying and going, oh, wow, and then using a fish hawk and GPS and putting it all together. So understanding how the water flows was the thing that changed it for me.
That's huge. And that is an important aspect of the whole, because you can have the lures ready, you can have all the white boards, it kills the kings, all that stuff. But when it comes to current in the water, and if you're not running those lines properly in the current, it's all in vain.
Well, and it helps you, understanding the currents, what it really does is it helps you anticipate where the fish are going to go. Because over time, as you start doing it, all of a sudden you realize when the weather changes, the currents change and the fish change, and they're going to be a different spot. And it's, it's seasonal, follows a general pattern, and that's huge, because then you can be able to find the fish.
Absolutely.
So.
Let's go to some of the comments here, guys. Keep them coming. Thank you for the ones that you guys sent in right now. So let's go through it from Cappy Drew. Let's see. They asked, what is Super Dan's go-to donut from CJ's? Is that?
Buttermilk. They only make it one day a week. We are going to have some Saturday and Sunday.
I'm looking forward to that.
Question.
There you go. Scott Wagner said, if you were to fish the western side of southern Lake Huron in the spring, would you run a flasher or a spin doctor?
In the spring?
In the spring.
I would personally go with a flasher in the spring. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Matt Joseph asked, what is the best speed to run lures at? I know speed over ground can vary. I use a fish hawk and typically keep the underwater speed 222. Wondering if there is a good target speed to attempt.
Somewhere between 1.5 and 3.5. I don't have one speed.
Yeah. That would be something I don't you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to this is the speed. That would be the variety part of it. That I would say that you could start at 2.2, but you better start working away from it, up or down. Every day is a little different.
I typically like to start out hot because it's easier to put your lines in the water and you're covering ground. And then you can start working your speeds down if the hot speed isn't what they want.
That sounds really good. Yeah.
And there are patterns. Every year it's different. There are some years it seems like they want it faster, and some years it seems like slower might be better too. So
that's what she said. In regards to that, actually, jokes aside, me and Rob were talking. Sorry, little humor in it, right? One thing we talked about, we noticed, was that this year it seemed like the moonshine spoons really were really just producing really well.
It was definitely the dominant spoon
over the stingers. Did you guys notice that, first of all, in terms of when you did run spoons, if moonshine was producing a bit better than some of your other ones?
I don't know if I could say that. And the reason I say this is because I was in such a variety. I was pretty variety minded, and once they start picking on a certain color or something that then it's that profile that they're looking at that that's what I pay attention to. It's hard to believe that at times when all you're seeing are big alewives in them, they're hitting SS or small stuff. Why would they hit that when they're eating a 6.5-inch alewife? But so I don't know. I'm normally not a hard fast rule guy and stuff like that.
I'm gonna go with what Arnie said. I think moonshines always work really, really good, but
there's definitely something about the glow all day long though. Whereas that used to be just a morning and then an evening. Low sun both sides. But it seems like they definitely like it during the middle of the day, glow.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was interesting because we just realized that it just seemed to produce more than like the stingers or for whatever reason. And like you said, it could be just because of the profile of it, or we don't really know. But when you're on the water, you notice these things. So you notice differences. Okay, they're not whatever paddle you're using. You're like, they're not really working on this one, so I'm using this one, works better. These little things you pick up on.
I thought the fish were a little more spread out last year, and I think a moonshine shows up a long ways off. So I think that's one reason a lot of people did really well with moonshines. I think those fish can see it, especially when you're in deeper water from a long ways away.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Got another question here. Scott wants to know, do you notice a change in color of loot preference? I'm not sure if that was a typo, Scott. Sorry if I'm reading that wrong. But okay, so do you notice a change in color preference as the year progresses? If so, what do you notice? Lure preferences. Sorry, that's a typo. Lure preferences. Do you notice change in the color as the year progresses? So they might be honed in, for example. I'm assuming he's saying white early on and then whatever. Something like that? Is there anything like that you guys have?
You know what? I think, well, if we're going to talk about spring, a lot of the spring colors don't work later in the year. A lot of that's because of the depth of water we're fishing. Unless the water's cold near the surface, it's all about the light. So yeah, absolutely. Blues, greens, and tinsel, the dark blue, whereas that dark blue doesn't seem to work very good once you get down into the summer. It's always more of the lighter blue, like a little boy blue or a bullfrog, or even on the spoons, modified blue dolphin, especially, the big crazy UV stuff, again, all about what they can see. UV definitely, you see the difference once we get later in the year, that something with that UV tape on it, that might be one of the reasons of moonshine, that people like it so much. It definitely, it has something to do with all of it, and
yeah.
that UV tape might be, or UV paint, or
Something.
you know, if somebody doesn't believe it, I always tell you take one of the lights, you know, take a black light that Rob's got in the store, get him to shut the lights off and just shine through the store. You'll be blown away with like.
Well, that used to be the old header
Yep.
picture for the shop before we kind of
Yep.
replaced it. But yeah, even when we close up on weekends, you turn the lights down and the light just beaming still out the front door. I mean, you can still see it. Christy Cross wanted to ask, what's your favorite moonshine spoon, Arnie?
My favorite moonshine spoon, Christy, would be.
Write this down, guys.
I would say last year was probably, and it's not UV, it would be the Happy Meal. And that one's without the UV tape.
That's the one that for me sits in the box the most.
Yeah, that's been a solid producer for years, and since we opened the store.
What about you, Tim?
I'm boring. Green flounder.
Pretty boring.
or the UV Agent Orange.
Of course, too.
Two, absolutely. Guy without a hat gets two.
Rob, got anything?
Blue flounder for me.
Blue Founder?
Yep.
Yeah, mine was Dancing Anchovy. That worked well last year. Just to kind of go around for you. Keep the questions coming, guys. We're definitely want to make this as much as a Q&A with you guys as possible as we just continue to have a conversation here. So throw them our way, like the stream here on Facebook. Share it with a friend.
Mike, can I ask a question? Rob,
Please ask him. Yes.
green or
Please.
blue in the glow? Green or blue, which one's more popular selling?
I'd say the blue because I pick it out for more people since it's always been. Mm-hmm. But I think if I just stayed out of it and let people then they'll probably buy more of the green.
Okay. I always wondered that, like that, because, you know, a lot of times that, like Mike Smith brought up about that paint, which is very interesting.
Speaking
you know?
of Mike Smith.
Yeah, he brought up that paint. I didn't know that. And green, you know, that's what we had. We only had green for a long time. So I think, you know, old guys like Dan probably always buy the green one, you know.
Old guys like Dan.
I had to throw. I got to get a couple.
Wait a minute. Who's got more gray hair?
I don't know who's got more hair.
I love the doc talk. This is what it's all about. Speaking of Mike Smith here, asking Arnie, what is the biggest sheep's head you've caught?
Oh yeah, I'm up. I've got my
Must be a
biggest
story.
sheep says about 8 pounds. Very proud of that one. Yeah.
Was there a story behind this? I'm guessing. That's really what it is. What's the backstory?
What's your best sheephead lure?
Yeah, my best sheephead.
Or moonshine for sheephead?
No, actually a stinger.
Oh, yeah?
Stinger,
Okay.
green dolphin, all day.
Oh, I love green dolphin, yeah.
all day.
And blue.
No, I couldn't. Everybody was catching them, and I couldn't. I was very upset. And I finally caught one, and I had to tell everybody about it.
Oh, so it was the talk of the. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I've never caught a sheep's head.
Oh, see?
Really?
There you go.
Caught 2 carp, though, out there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, it was interesting last year because muskie were caught out there. Like there were 2 occasions that we had people confirm caught muskie out in like 200 feet of water.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That was weird.
Pretty good sized fish, too.
Yeah, they were really respectable. They pulled them up. And we saw also quite a few people catching catfish.
Yep.
Just
I caught 2. Never caught one in my life. Caught 2.
really?
Yeah.
What it hit? I just got to know what it hit. What was the catfish hitting through?
Believe it or not, one of them hit a Luddy Special stinger,
Yeah.
and the other one hit the Happy Meal.
Damn happy man.
Both on coppers.
Really?
Mhm. One was on a 200, one was on the 300. One was in 100, I can tell you, 177 feet of water, the other one 191. I got it marked.
Hell's
That's the catfish spot, guys. If you want the coordinates, he's selling the coordinates for catfish.
Actually, no, there's a restricted area on it. Anybody on my dock cannot go near those 2 spots. We had that out.
Oh, you have a gentleman's agreement?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's respectable.
Yeah, you know, come on. It took me 37 years to catch one. All right.
That's your catfish spot.
Yeah.
There's probably about 30 of them right underneath their boat in the dock, right?
Yeah.
That's probably just sitting down there. But
No, I don't know if there's 30 under there.
Dan, what would you say is kind of the most unexpected catch you've had out on Lake Michigan?
Crappie.
Really?
Caught a crappie.
No. Where? Like, set us up.
So on the shoreline, fishing fall kings.
Wow.
Caught a crappie.
What it hit?
It hit a shad wrap. Big shad wrap.
Wow.
How big was the crappie?
Solid.
Oh, it's like
Respectable, right?
Like respectable size.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nice one.
Yeah.
Dude, there's some really good crappie in the lake, like in the, especially down in Chicago, like in DuSable and some of those harbors, Burnham. There's some good ones in there.
Yeah.
Well, back in the 80s, I had a triple on perch, trolling for salmon.
Really?
Yeah. Joined the Rebels. Yep.
That's a big lure for a perch.
Yeah, it is.
They were big perch.
Yeah.
You remember back in that we used to try to catch them in the fall when the
Yeah.
perch would come in?
Yep.
Yeah. When the water would get, yeah.
We had a lot of perch along the shore there for a while in the fall.
Let me ask you guys to get closer to the mics. Folks are kind of just having a little difficulty hearing you guys. Yeah, so you can get in a little closer. Awesome. Thank you. Vitus got you. Thank you. They said Arnie's the catfish king. Don't be fooled.
Everybody knows.
Branch out, Arnie. It's a whole new tangent.
So
all over it.
let me pick you guys' brain on. Danny just finished talking about perch. We see a lot of them down the southern basin. How come they're not as prevalent up in our area, up in this area, to the degree that you find them down in Chicago, Indiana?
This is just an opinion, so it's not backed up by anything. But when there used to be more perch here, they used to spawn off of Waukegan, and the way they structured it, I think they were wiped out by all the people who were sorting through the perch looking for the big ones they wanted to keep. So I think that might have had something to do with it, that spawning site getting hit so hard. It's just an opinion.
Sure. No.
But,
yeah. Arnie?
Yeah, you know what? The bottom makeup probably isn't, it's not the same as further south. You got more sand. The other side of the lake, like I say, across the lake, right here, Saugatuck, they've had pretty good perch fishing the last few years during the summer. I mean, way different than what we see. Mm-hmm. I think if we could answer that, that would be the $10 million question. Why the perch aren't doing that?
Because that would. I think if the perch are here, that would really just be like the final. Because then we have pretty much all those species. That would be the missing link to make it like you have options for all throughout the year, all these different kind of fish. Yeah, it would be cool. Maybe one day they'll return. John Hansen wants to know what determines spoon size for you guys. Very open, but I guess when do you go? I'll kind of add to that. When do you go magnum size? When do you go down to a slim or a stinger? What are those situations for you?
For me, it's typically what size bait fish are in the area.
Yeah.
So a lot of times in the spring, I use more magnums because you've got the big alewives coming in to spawn. And then, later in the year when the alewives have spawned and the young of the year are getting back offshore in the fishery, August, September, October, there's a lot of little baits around. So then it's more small baits. But it's more of that, and then with kings, sometimes it's just a matter of, especially in when they're staging the pre-spawn stage, sometimes it's an extreme. It's either a magnum or a really small one, and you're just appealing to that pea-sized brain in them.
Got you.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably spot on as far as like the starting point.
Let's see. Another question I had here. Keep them coming, guys. These are great. Thank you. Let's see here. Lat Martins wants to know, says, hi, LMA. Hi, Arnie. Hi, Dan. The question I have for the two captains is, when you troll deep water, can you tell the fishermen how you find your boat angle to find the way to troll into the current? So this is obviously a topic that you guys are going to discuss over the weekend seminar. So if you guys have an opportunity, sign up and come through. But you want to touch on that?
Yeah. And we also got salmon schools in Grand Rapids, Ludington, Two Rivers, and in the UP as well as the ones coming up here. I use my GPS. I've done it that way for so long that when I'm out there, I'm constantly looking at my course over ground and my speed over ground, and I'm using that as my ground zero. Also fishing with an autopilot. So it really helps because it'll hold it. You're holding a direction. And I start manipulating my speed with that, watching how the boat the speed over ground, SOG, adjusts, and my angle adjusts as I slow down or speed up. And I'm also looking at, the angle of riggers and divers when it's pulling back. So I'm kind of combining a little bit of everything to do that, to understand the currents.
Very, very kind of orchestrated. I'm assuming the same thing for you.
Yeah, I'd say the one thing I'd say I look at heavily is that if you're fortunate enough to have a center downer, get right behind it and look at it. And if that wire is one way or the other, you are definitely not right in the current. The fastest rule of thumb is got to straighten it out the best you can. Some days you can't get it perfect, but getting it straight will start telling you what direction the current is. It also could tell you you have to work with, like what Dan's talking about, how fast you're going and all that, because you can get it perfect going down with the current and going into it. So there's a little bit, two things to work with there.
Right.
But the way the gear lays in the water is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question from Tyler Prince. What's the go-to early spring coho depth and setup? Arnie, you want to start that one?
You know what? The early go-to depth, I don't know if I can say depth of water. Depth in the profile, top 10 feet, by far. Absolutely, that's where the fish are going to be. As far as finding it, temperature. The surface temp gauge is paramount that time of year.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, it's the top 10, like Arnie said, and it seems like some years the cohos move up the shoreline and they're in close from the beach to 20, 30, 40 feet of water. Other years they'll be offshore. I think most years you get a combination of, you get the offshore cohos that are out somewhere out there, and then you get the inshore ones. But again, it's going to be higher up near the surface, whether they're in shallow or offshore.
Yeah. If you have good electronics, you see them too. They're just sprinkled in that 5 to 10 feet of water. Most times you can kind of.
Yeah, more than that, temperature, the surface temp is going to kind of help you with that. That, and you kind of along, there's a lot that goes into it with current and everything. But I'd say the surface temp is what you want to look at, not as much as what's underneath you as far as what's changing.
Got it. Next question from Dan. Dan the man. What's up, Dan? When is it time to swap out your fly for a fresh new one? Oops, the question got away from me. I'm sorry. When is it time to swap out your fly for a fresh new one after a little tinsel's gone or until it's all gone?
That one you might want to. That if you ask 50 guys, they give you 50 different answers. My problem is I like to run them until they won't get hit. And I mean, sometimes less is more by far. Other people can't stand when there's not, when the tinsel's in half, half of what they started with. Again, it all rolls back down to what that profile they're seeing. Their eyes catching something. Sometimes that beat up fly is money.
Yeah.
You know what? And you had earlier, one of the first questions was, what's different about the east side of the lake and the west side of the lake? Mm-hmm. I'm not always sure that guys on the west side are very transparent with their information. Speaking of the flies that are beat up, I learned a lesson during the euchre tournament one year when you were doing better than I on the first day, and you said it was an aqua fly. So I walked over to your boat that evening, and I looked at your aqua flies. There was hardly any aqua on them. And, Arnie failed to mention that it was really well worn out. But, yes, those beat-up flies, I always tell people, keep a box of them. When, like Arnie says, when they quit catching fish, change it, take it off, but save them, because there's going to be days like when they're hitting little stinger spoons, or like with the steelhead, we use the scorpions and the mini streaks a lot. Them old flies start working then. So,
yeah. That's a real gem right there, because, you've heard it from both of them and the conversations we've had with other captains on the podcast. That I would say is it's a secret without being a secret, because that's what they've all done. Mm-hmm. But to somebody not in that space, that's not tournament angling or chartering, and they see their fly get a little beat up, we gotta go to route, get a new one. But Dan, hold on to it, because
you still can come get a new one.
Yeah. Sorry, absolutely, come down. In fact, we'll take the old one you don't want. I'll go on that one. That's a really cool tip right there for you guys to run it until it's completely dead. Next question coming in from Michael Vennett. Mike, Rob, I know you guys are big kayak anglers. What is your go-to rod and reel setup for springtime coho, Rob?
7-foot ugly stick, medium or medium light. And then any 20 or 30 size Okuma reel, or I like the Penn squalls and fathoms as well. 15 or 20 size with 20-pound braid.
Yeah, I mean, my only difference for me is I run a medium light just so I can get more fight because they're spring coho. They're not exactly huge, so I kind of milk it, but pretty standard. Yeah. Ken Console, what's up, Ken? By the way, this guy Ken, man, he talked about grinding. He went this guy traveled around the lake in his kayak fishing and did one hell of a year. So congrats on that, dude. Excuse me. How are you deciding between running pump handles versus weighted steel, copper, or lead core when targeting mid-level depths, 30 to 80 down? And he mentioned that he's a kayak guy, so he doesn't have access to riggers. So, any input on that?
I can't. The reason I say is I don't have any experience with the pump handle. That's not something I use.
We used to use those back in the
We
80s.
tried. I tried. Yeah, I didn't.
Pump handles, you're talking about just a ball weight, a lead weight
Yeah.
on a wire line down the middle.
I mean, he's a kayak guy, so I can chime in on that.
Yeah.
Basically, like if we're talking about our deeper water summer spread, I'm going to run 2 pump handles, really torpedo divers on braid. I'm going to have one in front of me on each side, just going perpendicular to the kayak. And then I usually run a lead core straight back. And I don't really run too much copper from the kayak because the copper sinks a lot faster, we turn a lot faster, and so you end up getting more snags that way. So the lead core is a bit more forgiving, and it's easier to implement. It's easier to get out in the water when you're putting it out over your shoulder while you're pedaling the kayak. Whereas the copper kind of, it has a bit more memory, and it'll catch some of the guides and stuff, and you end up backlashing if you're not real careful. So I would stick with lead core in that case unless you really just need to get down very deep. But that's all you really need to do in the kayak spread. I don't really switch around from that too much.
Yeah, same.
I'll just add on that. If I was limited on rods like that, I think I would do a 3-color lead core with the Cuda and the Muskie torpedoes because you can fish those anywhere in the water column. That's what I would do.
I actually do that. Yeah, I run it straight off the back. I just it's basically a modified SWR for a kayak.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's really easy to do that and it works well. So try that out for sure.
Very versatile.
Yeah, guys, in about another 10 minutes or so. So keep the questions coming. We want to make sure we have opportunity to pick their brains and so.
It won't take long.
Warren Calvary wants to ask, was there ever a higher bag limit on salmon back in the 70s or whenever?
No.
5.
It's always been,
It's always been 5.
Yeah.
And you know what? Having traveled out to the Pacific Northwest last fall on a trip, to experience that, it was beautiful, but it definitely was an eye-opener to realize how good we have it here with our salmon fishing, because out there it's one rod, it's one fish. So guys are like, the fishing was amazing today. And they're like, oh yeah, how'd you do? Caught our limit. Oh, great. Got one fish. I'm like, wait, what? So it's very different.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky on this side, over here with our salmon. And I told Rob, I'm like, dude, if I ran a charter, I would be doing Facebook ads to the Pacific Northwest and be like, want more than one fish? Come on by. It's very different, but 5 has always been the thing here, huh?
Yep.
John said, John, I'm not sure the context here, just said gold blank spoons. Not sure what about that necessarily, if they're used or I think gold spoons tend to attract a lot more browns.
Oh, browns are always sucker
for gold.
For gold, and sometimes gold works better on cloudy days.
Little darker.
Not all, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. Magic Man and Gold.
Yep.
Is just a great spoon. That one has. It doesn't seem to have a cloudy, sunny. Just got the right combination. It's on a gold blend and one on a gold blend.
Yeah, Gold Hud Special, another real solid one.
Yeah, gold's a color. You just, as you're changing lures, got to think about, did a silver one. Okay, let's get something gold out there. Try it, put it in the lineup. Give it a shot.
Yep.
Rotating all the way through. Could you guys share situations when you might pull rods and slim down your spread?
I'm tired of the people.
question you had, follow up, is if you're on the boat with your family, which family member's getting the 500 copper? Let's see that one. Go ahead.
You know what? Definitely calm, flat calm, high sun. Then our water, tends to be so clear. Sometimes pulling a few rods, creates a little bit more, spreading things out. Definitely, everybody talks about steelhead fishing. You can't miss with that 300, or the 3-color, until the 3-color's out of the water. And guess what? There's a 5-color. Now he's the outside one, and guess what? Now the 5-color is just as good as the 3-color. Had a lot more to do with where it was by itself a little bit. So, at times like that, especially when it's clear and calm. The only time I'd say no is during the spring when the water's cold and the cohos are around. Then they're not afraid. Not much scares them, it seems like.
Maniacs.
Yeah.
Maniacs.
Great fish.
Is that pretty much for you?
Same, yeah. Clear, calm, midday kings. Sometimes too much could be a problem for kings. So,
and speaking on kings, because obviously that's the most coveted fish on our water. When folks go out there, could you guys both speak on the how do I word this? We all go out like early morning, sun's barely, sometimes not even up, you're going out there, and you'll catch that early morning wave of some fish. But then there seems to be a trend where you'll get like that late morning opportunity for kings to circle back around. Could you guys speak on that, and for anglers, in terms of hang in there, the sun comes up, you might think the bite's over, but there's still opportunity if you hang in there for like that 9, 10, 11 o'clock opportunity.
A lot of people give up early, and those, especially with kings. There's definitely a 10 to noon, 10 to 1 bite that goes back on. A lot of times after that morning bite, especially if we have it on our hill, on some structure, a lot of, let's say it's an 80 feet to start the day. A lot of times that slower period, they're out in that 120, 130, just kind of hanging out. They're loafing like everything does while they're full. And then I would say that the one thing I'd say about that is typically they don't go back into 80. They get active in that area where they're at, in that deeper water. And that's one thing Dan does a lot that I know is that we'll talk about like slimming your presentation down. During that period, Dan loves to run his light line and a spoon by itself near the bottom. And most people go the other way, put a flasher down, and get that near the bottom. And that spoon, that little, especially a stinger or something that size, seems to really, it's all by itself down there, and they like that.
It's just an easy meal, right? It's probably what it could be just for them. It's just like
a snack.
Yeah, a snack, right?
Yeah. A lot of people give up, and me and Arnie have been chartering forever, and when you got 6 people paying you and you don't have many fish in the box, you can't quit. So we've learned to grind it out. I do think kings feed. Full moon, there's definitely a great midday bite, but I think most days they feed early. If you're not out there for that pre-sunrise bite, you missed it, but they get hungry again in the middle of the day. And a lot of guys, they give up. They give up, or they start fishing for lake trout or steelhead or cohos, and they miss out on those kings. I know last year in August out of North Point, we had some
they showed up.
Cat. We had the midday. Those kings it was pretty good.
That was a great picture. Let me tell you, when I saw that was some stud kings you guys pulled.
It's kind of neat because you see like everybody, if we're just gonna talk about the charter guys, everybody's times are structured a little different nowadays. Years ago, we all did the same thing. Now some guys are out. Some guys are out longer or on longer trips, and some guys' schedule is tighter so that they're turning around at 10 and they're on their way back out, and or 11 on their way back out, and at noon as they're setting up, they catch a king or have another one on, and you kind of can put that pattern together that hey, they've been, your first 5 rods going down, one of them grabs a 4-year-old or a big, a king, and then my last bite was a king, and they started. Now I'm leaving, he's showing up, and that window was there, and and now we can start taking advantage of it a little bit. That happens so much, and okay, they're here still. You just got to have the confidence to fish for them. We talk about like early morning. When you're there in the dark, the graph looks one way, and then once that sun comes, it totally looks different. But the reality is, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's just not where you can see it, and that's that confidence that hey, they're here. We just gotta A, figure out what they want, and B, stick with it.
Yeah.
And that's something everybody wants to pull and run to a new spot. If you saw something you liked, it's nearby. It didn't go far.
Right.
You just have to work it.
Work it, yeah. That is interesting to your point, though. When you're in there in this pre-sun, it looks like you're dead water, and that light breaks the horizon, and bait just magically shows up. It's really cool when you're watching electronics and you see that happen. Let's get back to some more questions here. Sherry Peterson says, let me scroll here and get it. How long will you go without getting hit before you decide to pick up and move? Do you go by miles or time?
Oh boy.
Can of worms question here.
You don't want to.
You got to come this weekend to the school. That's a lot involved in that one.
It's a lot to unpack in that one.
It's an easy one though. If you're in a tournament, you decided too late, and if you're on a charter, you decided too early. Because you never pick the right spot, it seems like when you're running.
That's a great answer, actually. That's a great answer.
If you've seen nothing, done nothing, yeah, it's time to go. But if you've had, like I said, if you've had some success or you saw it, a lot of times you just don't have something right. Keep working it. Patience, unfortunately, is a tough thing to come by some days.
Yeah.
But let me add a caveat. If you have somewhere to go, though, then I'd be more likely to make a move, whether you run there or troll really fast there. Like you hear reports, or that there's steelhead offshore in 220, let's say. So let's say there's a mixed bag out there, and you're just tired of trying to catch those kings in 90 feet of water, 130 feet of water. Then you got something to go to. Then it's easier. Yeah. So
Dan, circling back with another question. On a slow day, how often are you adjusting your high confidence baits versus low confidence baits?
Okay, we're going to talk a lot about that, both Saturday and Sunday. But there's always a certain amount of, first of all, if there's fish there, I'm more aggressive with changing lures. If I know there's not fish there and I'm like trolling, we're doing the death troll trying to find them, then I'm not changing a whole lot. Let's say the middle ground where there might be some fish there, then I've always my go-to baits that are working, they stay. And then I've got a couple rods that I just constantly change like every 10 or 15 minutes because I have a lot of energy. And so I'm trying, and then I try to use those couple changes to those middle rods, change them. But I rarely ever take the go-to baits off because I know when I find the fish, they're going to fire. Especially with kings, if I'm really trying to catch kings. And a lot of times when I fish, I'm trying to catch kings, but I'm also trying to catch other fish. So I sometimes leave those king baits alone.
Sunny asks, how do you keep, how do you guys help keep those biting flies at bay on your boat? Fans, thermocell, etc. It's actually the one question most folks would probably ask, how to keep the flies from biting you.
Wear pants, long sleeve shirts, pretend they're not there. There's no getting away from them. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's like the sun. It's there.
We're obviously not very bright because we've chartered our whole life, so you got to get used to them. Yeah. There's no good answer to that one.
Nothing seems to work.
I've seen people bring every concoction out on the boat over the years with putting stuff on their ankles, this, that, and the other thing.
Just gotta go out there with the bee suit, full-fledged bee suit.
Yeah, a hazmat suit.
Yeah, and just go out there. Although when those flies are on, it's usually in the middle of summer, so you're cooking. Yeah. So it's not.
You know what's funny though? I have had people tell me that that thermosol works.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're, if you couple you on a boat, that's one thing. You can kind of have a few, but I have never had much experience with it. But I have heard that works.
There you go. All right. We'll get you last few questions. If you guys want to get one in, ask it now, please. We want to wrap this up here in a few more minutes. But Mike Orwick, hopefully I said that properly, asked, during the summer funk out on the lake, that tends to point many to target Lakers. Do you think this might present any population concerns with the Lakers down the road? So in other words, it gets tough. People start banging on the Lakers.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. Our lake trout are doing great.
Too much natural reproduction.
Yeah, there's a lot of natural reproduction. Illinois is the factory for lake trout, and the southern basin.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of data you can look on that if it's 24 inches or less right now, it's like a 70% chance it's naturally reproduced. So
Wow.
I mean, they're pumping out a lot of them. But people are targeting them, which more opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I always look at like if you want to go out there, I want to catch something. So maybe the Kings are not cooperating or whatever. I want to catch a fish. Otherwise, what's the point of going out?
Right, head and tail.
Yeah,
That's what we're after.
And yeah, so let me see if there are any questions here. Mike said, "Great podcast, everyone." Thank you, Mike. Donald said, "Can't wait for Sunday." How do you? Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. How do you decide to turn back when the bite slows? Almost kind of in the vein of the other question, in a sense. When you throw in the towel. And in the context of not working charters, because that's different, but just personally, if you're out there, when you decide, let's call it, guys.
I think he's asking, like, if you're on the fish, turn back on the fish.
Yeah.
Oh, did I misread it? Apologies, sorry.
Yeah. I for me, it's if the fish are scattered and it's been slow and I find fish, I'm not going to get very far from them. And also if they're bigger fish, if they're kings. The last few years, the kings have been in little pockets. So I'm going to stay with them. If the fish are spread out and there's a band of fish, it's just easier to go in a straight line. So just kind of keep on going until you maybe go 15, 20 minutes without a bite.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The only thing I'd throw in is if you went through an area and there was a lot of bait, and you were getting hit, and all of a sudden there's no bait, it's time to turn. You found it, go back. Don't go any further. You tripped over what you were looking for.
And can you guys speak on the importance of when you're out there, so you're deep water fishing, right? How important is it to kind of find the bait? Are you catching more fish when you're near the bait? Do you find that just because there'll be times when you're looking in your electronics and there's not really much going on in the water, but you'll still get a bite. Your rod will go off. So,
it's funny. A lot of times, late in the summer, and we're out deep, we're seeing bait. A lot of it's the small, the fish that or the bait that was spawned or hatched.
Yeah.
Excuse me, hatched in the spring. When you see that and you're getting hit, I mean, that's it. You're there. A lot of times in the summer out deep, you don't see a lot of bait, especially when the light, once it gets light. That's why, a big thing, if you're fortunate enough to get out in the dark and see what's going on, the sun went up, the bait went down, it's still there. You at least have that confidence to know that it's there. And then that's going to keep you stay fishing at it. One of the things, one of the questions before was, do you change lures? A lot of times, if I know there's fish there, I know they're here, I'm just not getting them to bite, then I'm not running it right. I got something wrong. And that's where angle and speed, and that's where really dialing it tightened up. I'm not a big bait changer with, like Dan said, there's certain things that's gonna fish. I'm more worried about am I running it right. Getting it right is more important sometimes than I'm looking for the new magic thing. No, just get it right. With confidence baits. It's hard to fish with 10 baits you never fished with. You just don't have confidence in them. If you're confident, who cares what everybody says on the dock? If you've had good luck, stick with it. That's a big thing. I think people, make a mistake. He told me they were getting them on this. Yeah, but you were catching them on this. Why did you go away from what worked? For you. That's one of the things I think is important.
Got it. And now's a good opportunity, guys. Get your last minute questions in. We're going to wind it down now. Rob, did you have any other things you wanted to ask Arnie or Dan here?
No, I think we covered most of my questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is largely driven to be a Q&A for you guys to give an opportunity to ask them directly in this live stream version of the podcast. And also remind you that Captain Dan Keating's school this weekend here at Lake Michigan Angler. If you can't make this one, you can also go to his website, which is
CaptainDanKeating.com.
and you can get the other dates for some of the other areas he's going to be going up and down the lake here. And Arnie's going to be here this weekend for it as well. He's going to be
I'll be here
contributing.
Sunday.
So he'll be here for Sunday. Great opportunity to pick their brains. And as well as getting in contact, Arnie running charters. I think you're retired, right, Dan, from charters? Or are you
I'm
still
not running full-time charters.
Okay.
Not
So-
retired, but just not doing the grind.
the grind of it.
Yeah, because they ground my back.
Yeah. So if you do want to get out in the water with them this year, go ahead. Well, you go to Captain Dan Keating's website. And Arnie, where can he reach you at for trips in the new year or this year?
Yeah, southportcharter.com. Southport Charter Service is the name of my business.
Yep. So reach out to them as well. But definitely this weekend, good opportunity to get in here right in person and pick their brains and learn some stuff. One last comment here. Let's see. All you fishermen, thank you, Lake Michigan Angler. Thank you, Arnie and Dan, and support the store. And awesome. So that was just a big thank you from Martins. Thank you, guys. John said thank you. Great show. Thank you as well, guys. What else do we have? I guess just shop-wise, we want to mention that a lot of stuff is coming in. We're actually getting it in earlier than we thought. And
Yeah, just got in some stuff from Dreamweaver today. I haven't even opened the boxes yet. I think there's some Ninja boards and Super Slims in there.
we got rods, we got combos.
We got stubbies. We're all loaded up with different combos. Lead core, copper, dipsy, everything there. Reels are coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're basically ready for the season. And again,
Moonshines came in yesterday.
I got to go look through that. But much like last year with the whole shipping thing, with all this stuff that's going on in the world, it's here today. It could be gone tomorrow, and then we don't know when it comes in again. So keep that in mind if you're looking to get ahead and get the gear you need. Probably now's a good time to come by, take a look, and see if we have it, and get yourself stocked up. We also got our first Lake Michigan Angler T-shirts are in. We got white and the blue. So if you stop by in the shop, you can check those out as well. And I think that's all we have here. Let's see. Wait, there's one more thing. Mike Smith said excellent info. Thank you, Mike. One last thing here from Joshua. Can you comment on the unique terrain of different parts of the lake from Oak Creek to Winthrop Harbor, rocky area, sandy, others specific unique areas, structure, essentially?
Comment on it, where to go? Is that what you think?
Well, it's kind of where, it's
from
kind of
Oak
vague,
Creek-
Pretty
but-
big area.
Yeah, from
it
Oak Creek
is
to
in
Winthrop
an area.
Harbor, you got a lot. You got the Wind Point, you got the reefs there off Oak Creek, you got, the 14 can, the 16 can, you got the reef marker, that's straight out of racing. Then we have an area south there. It's it's called the Honey Hole. It's a depression. It drops into 60. It's 40 on each side. That's a real popular area. And then of course we have our hills. I mean, a lot of structure, a lot of places to look. The great thing is the hill that runs basically from north of Racine all the way to the state line. That's the first big piece of structure, in the southern basin, as these fish move up inside of 120 feet of water. So, like current, food, everything's there for them.
Yeah. And we'll end on this note from Addison Huck. Let's hear a big fish story from each of you. What's the most memorable big fish you pulled? And maybe it's not just because it was big, but maybe the circumstances around the catch.
You know what? I got a big fish. My big fish story from last year, and it wasn't a huge fish. It was about a 20 pound lake trout.
Okay.
And it wasn't about the fight. It wasn't about anything. It was once I netted it and set it on the deck, it coughed up about a 16-inch coho.
Whoa.
And that was pretty interesting. First off, lake trout aren't known for their speed. Cohos are.
Yeah.
And to eat a 16-inch coho, he was pretty hungry.
Yeah.
But that definitely that attests to when they flare those gills and open up that mouth, there's a vacuum there.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, wow, look at this fish. Look what he just ate.
That's
very impressed with that fish.
That's pretty cool. Dan?
My big fish story, I'm gonna go with my son Ethan's sharks. I know it's not Lake Michigan.
Oh, it's big. It's a big fish.
But he got into the shark fishing in Florida, and we would catch these little peewee sharks, and then we get bigger, and then bigger, and then we figured out how to catch the 30-pound sharks, and then he got his beach rod, his Avid reel. He saved his money, got the first 9-foot, I believe it was a lemon shark off the beach, and then next trip down, one day we got 2 of them over, like in the mid 200-pound range out on a boat.
Jesus.
That's his shark.
I had a 16-inch coho story.
I don't have a hat, okay? I can't fit in.
That's a trouble.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight on the live stream podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you throw a thumbs up. Feel free to share the video when it's all done. And as always, we'll be here for any of your fishing needs at Lake Michigan Angler. Thank you again to Arnie and Dan for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.